When we talk about college readiness, first thing we must identify is that this is a multifaceted subject matter. College readiness, or the lack thereof, all centers on this notion of college knowledge, and it often affects a student's decision regarding the specific content knowledge that they choose to study or that they even attempt to master. A lack of attention to academic behavior is one of the most frequent causes of problems with, within a student's first year of college, to be frank. Whether they possess the necessary content knowledge or key cognitive strategies to actually navigate this crazy terrain called college. Content knowledge is not just a mere buzzword for some. It represents a significant stumbling block for students nationwide within academia. A school must first understand who their students are and what they are prepared to do academically and what they expect of themselves, as well as the institution and the people around them. So, for us to truly understand the key cognitive strategies and harness the full support and structures, we have to bring together a group of stakeholders that consist of the institutions themselves, advisors, peer groups, administrators, faculty, staff, students themselves, in order for us to be able to navigate these rough waters of campus culture and academia. Thus, that's why I decided to bring a conversation and bring together a group of these mighty stakeholders. You will hear from a professor, which is myself. You will also hear from an advisor and a student, and we will give you unique perspectives on the subject matter known as college readiness. So get ready for the journey. I hope you're ready, because here we go. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for joining us today to discuss the subject matter of college readiness. Now, I think it would be good for us to speak and definitely listen to the other, but generate some counter arguments or some additional content from what you hear. So that way we are able to learn from one another and appreciate others' unique perspective. So, the first question I have for both of you is simple. Do you define college readiness? So if we can hear from the advisor first and then the student second, and then I'll chime in from the professor's perspective.
Sure. For me, college readiness is really a set of skills comprised of being someone who is comfortable asking questions, taking the initiative to kind of explore interests, being willing to hear other perspectives, consider other perspectives, and respond accordingly. And having an understanding of how you learn. You don't have to know everything about how you learn. I think that's a big piece of what college does for you while you are there. But I do think that you have to have a sense of your why, the things that motivate you to learn, in order to be kind of prepared to tackle college.
I agree 100% with your analysis.
I do think that is, those are very general statements. And I'm sure we'll get to the meat of it. But those are traits in folks that I see being really ready to start college.
Okay. And now, student, from the student perspective.
Yes, I definitely agree with everything you said, but I think from a student perspective, for me, college readiness more so had to do with the education in terms of where was I ready to go and learn at this level? Did I have all the tools that I needed? Did I have a well-rounded education? And was I able to go into college fully knowing, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn this. Can I understand the things that I'm learning? College is a lot more fast paced. Is the pace okay? And things like that. So I think to me that was what college readiness was.
Mhm.
I definitely agree with your assessment as well. As a professor, my perspective, college readiness is also the attitude. See, many people think that it's just only the skill, or it's just like, what are you ready for the actual event or the actual the new playground? But I also believe it's the student attitudes as well, like the ability to not just want to show for the, but actually be an active participant. I think now more than ever, I see students that they are just present in body, but not sound in mind, in the sense of that they're willing to come to class, but they're not actually willing to do the reading. They are willing to show up for the task, but they're actually willing to participate in all aspects of participation, meaning I have read, I have reviewed, I have outlined, and I have brought in some foundation for others to build from. Many students feel that you need to provide the foundation for them, and feel that that is not, it's not feeding to the conversation of readiness. Because one of the key things for you to be ready, you got to actually have your shoes on. You got to know exactly where you're going. Many of the students are expecting professors to navigate the terrain, to actually not only provide them the food, but to chew the food for them, and then to spit it out for them. And I think as a result, it's making this conversation and this notion of where do we go next, it's getting harder and it's getting much more murkier. And that's just from the perspective of an educator that has been doing it for some time. And I
Mhm.
feel that students are getting less willing to actually, they're getting less ready, if that makes sense. And they are not willing to actually step up to the plate unless someone is forcing them to the plate.
Mhm.
And I think that is it, it's really driving conversation, and it's driving the need to actually lay down some, I guess when you bowl, they you put up those bumpers. I think we need to put up some bumpers to let them know, hey, you're not actually ready for this thing called college. We need to actually give some lessons what college looks like and what
Mhm.
readiness looks like. It can't just be a you pass the 12th grade, now you're college ready. That's not how it works. I don't think any of this works.
Mhm. It's interesting. I mean, I certainly am familiar with all of the issues that you're describing, and in advisement, we see it too. Of course, we have to threaten them to come in.
Yes.
Getting them in the door for advisement is a struggle, let alone getting them to engage. But I do think that a big piece of this conversation also comes down to our students uh, education ready, right? It's not just about college. It would be very interesting to have conversations with high school guidance counselors and teachers and principals to see their take on this, because in my experience, this is not an issue that emerges when students are moving from high school to college. This is an issue that emerges in K through 12.
Wow.
Um, I think that we have developed a system, and I can really only speak to New York State, right?
Yeah.
But I think we have developed, and specifically New York City, we've developed an education system, a public education system that is more interested in pushing students to the finish line than we are in actually educating. And
Mm.
it's evident in the way that we fund schools. It's evident in the way that we test any kind of ability. I was educated in another country, and when I moved here for college, I did not understand what a curve was. I didn't
Mm.
know what grading on a curve meant because that was not a principle used in my education. You either passed or you failed.
There
Um,
was no in between.
and there was no adjusting
Mm.
for scores that might be lower. And we do that. We do that with Regents exams. We do that with other exams that students are asked to complete in order to kind of certify that they have reached a certain level of knowledge and literacy. And if you look at math scores and English scores alone, those, and then see the type of writing that we expect from college freshmen and get from college freshmen in the public education system, there are big gaps between students coming in who are ESL and their
Mm.
writing skills versus our local students. And the ESL students often have a mastery of English writing that exceeds that of the students who were educated locally. And that
Mm.
tells me that we're not developing those skills in students and allowing them to be ready in an academic sense for the rigors of college. And
Mm.
if we truly want to address college readiness, we have to understand that it can't be an expectation that we place on the student alone. It's an expectation that we as educators have to invest in.
Incorporate.
As yes, as a society, we have to start valuing education more. We need to direct funds to it. I mean, Mayor Adams keeps wanting to cut education costs.
There.
And parents need to be engaged. And those are
Right.
all things that are very difficult to achieve in post-pandemic world. The post-pandemic world is not has not made that any easier.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. I agree. So I'm gonna move to the next major question. When do you believe, well, before we go there, when did college readiness start for you? And we start with you, Kayla.
Okay, college readiness for me, I went to a school that pushed college from the first grade, so I think they had always kind of stressed college readiness. So it was always like, okay, when you graduate high school, you're going to college, and they kind of made sure that those formative years we kind of drilled in how to take tests, which I think
Mm.
in many ways was a benefit and a con because we did learn how to take tests. We learned how to manipulate them so that we would be able to, figure out the answer. But and sometimes there was gaps in that we didn't actually know what we were doing. More so like I just know how to take a test and I know how to figure out which answer I should be choosing. But in that, I do still think that when I did get to college, I was ready. I was more ready than a lot of my counterparts just because
Mm.
I spent more time doing college level math classes, college level English classes, and stuff like that. So I think it kind of transcended throughout my 12 years in the public school system.
Mm. So you think that early introduction, because I think that backs on the next that we're going to go into, but I definitely want to give Julie a chance to give her commentary. When did college start for you?
I would also say very early.
Mm.
Where I was educated, you chose whether you'd be going to college or not at a very early stage. There were other options like technical schools and trade schools and such that you could have as your set goal. So from fifth grade on, I would say it was pretty clear that we were being educated to achieve college, and the idea of learning for the sake of getting to the finish line did not exist. The idea was you either do the work and you do well in it and you are promoted to the next grade, or you repeat the grade. And that's not something that I am familiar with here. So yeah, college readiness started very, very early for me.
I would say for me, unlike both of you, college readiness did not start for me very early.
Okay.
Um, as a result of my parents did attend college, but it was a one-off. It wasn't something directed where we had a pathway to it. It was more stumbled into it. And my academic upbringing, the schooling that I went to in high school, it was just so of a, like an afterthought. Hey, this is what you want to do, possibly, or what do you want to go to college? So that conversation started about, I would say, 11th grade. And that is very, very late in life. And despite the fact that it did start so late in life, I was still able to join the debate team. Many good things out of that, cultivate that membership of the debate team to getting myself a full academic debate team fellowship. Never before my class did even anyone contemplate, hey, you can utilize, the art of debate to help go to college. So
Mm-hmm.
that world opened the ideal of college to me. But as far as skill per se or key benchmarks, no. I know what to expect beyond what I saw on television. And what I saw on television, people went to school, they dressed nice, they wore letters, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to dress nice, I want to wear letters, and I want to dance and go to class occasionally. But I didn't understand like the mechanics of college until I actually entered college, and I feel that is way too late. So unlike you two, I wish I would have had that ground since fifth grade or first grade. And I think that that ability to have that entry point so early can revolutionize the way that students see this next step, next transition in their lives to college as not just a new avenue or a new playground, but a great frontier to really shape their future goals.
Would you say that when you entered college, that you had a curiosity, you had your why as to why you were in college? You wanted the
I,
letters, right?
I
Was
definitely
that your
wanted the
why?
letters. I wanted to, I really thought college was going to be like a different world. That
Mm-hmm.
was a show about a black, like I really even believe that Hillman was a real place, it was based off of Morehouse and Spelling. But I really thought, like, I didn't even contemplate like what I contemplated the party aspect, the
Mm-hmm.
life, the entertainment, the joy that the characters seem to portray on television, but not the work that required of the
Mm-hmm.
student. The fact that we had like a campus culture class that helped to rein in like, hey, you the paper. Oh, I do. Oh, have to go to your professor's office hours. Oh, you actually have to read, and this is what we mean when we say read, not like skim a few pages, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thoroughly make an outline. That kind of like how to the 101 intro to college. And I noticed that more and more they don't have campus. Did you have campus culture, Kayla?
See, I had the opposite like thought than you did. Like I went into college fully thinking only about the academics, and I think that's because my charter school is very strict about we're doing academics. You don't really have time for socializing, and that's why I say it kind of was a downside. But I think the campus culture, it was a big culture shock to me because I for so long I had been used to this very small cohort and things went
Mm-hmm.
a certain way. Then suddenly I was at this fairly small school, but still like around people that I didn't look like, around people that didn't come from similar backgrounds like me. And it was
Mm-hmm.
very confusing for me. And I was trying to find like where I belonged. Like I knew, okay, I'm here to do classes. I have to make my family proud. So I was really not focused on, oh, there's a party, I should go, I should socialize, I should join a club. And I didn't start doing that until probably my sophomore or junior year.
Mhm.
Very interesting. See, I love this richness of conversation. So I wanted to ask both of you, when do you believe college readiness should commence? Since we all have three unique perspectives. Started at first, Julie started in fifth, I started in 11th grade. Um, so when do you believe that it would be effective to college readiness? Because you said, Kayla, that there were some ups as well as some downs. And if we start at a specific point, then I think I want to piggyback on my next question. What should be included? What should be some key factors or techniques that we include?
Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that me having college readiness instilled in me throughout my schooling was a bad thing, but I think the way they went about it, I think it should be a balance. Like I think my school was very much like shoving like the whole thing down our throats, but I think there should be a balance because you might think you're ready for college, but then you get to college and you realize, oh, I'm not ready. I have no idea what's going completely I'm completely out of my depth. So I think it should be like a gradual thing. Like, okay, in first grade, you're not going to be like, oh, you have to go to college. You're in first grade. But I do think throughout those years, and as you start getting older, maybe fifth, sixth, let's start talking about it. Let's start, okay, here's here's a college. Look at what you can do. Look what you can be. Stuff like that.
Mhm.
I love it.
Ye-
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with Kayla's perspective on not having it shoved down your throats. I think that we have developed this odd culture in the US where we either have, those who are in Kayla's situation where there is so much pressure on students to perform well and to perform a certain way and to outsmart tests, right? It's not about learning the material and learning your history, for example. It's about being able to kind of whittle down the possible answers so that you can figure out what the right answer is, even if you don't have the actual knowledge of the subject matter, right? That to me is frightening. Like that to me is not what education should be doing, um, because it creates this system in which people who are privileged enough to have access to education that can figure out the test and teach to the test are going to thrive, and those who don't will not, right? And we see
Will
that
think.
playing out. We see it.
Yeah.
um I think college readiness is one of those things that I think the basics that are needed for everybody that we should be focusing our attention on is agency and like understanding yourself. The
I
biggest
love that.
issue I see with my students is that they don't know anything about
Mm.
like you ask them, did you take this class in high school, and you get like a blank stare back, right? What did you take in the Regents, and there would be, they can maybe rattle off half of the things that they took in Regents. It's like they weren't there.
Mm.
And I find it frightening when I advise a student in the fall semester and I ask, what classes did you enjoy in the spring, and they can't even tell me the subjects that they took in the spring.
So you
They
see
don't
that
check their grades.
the
They're
development of agency will allow them to be able to not only advocate for themselves, but to be able to elaborate likes, their dislikes, etc.,
I
etc.
I think if we foster agency and identity, students will feel more ownership and empowerment over what they're doing and why they're doing it. I think we see too frequently that students are coming to college because they're told they must, whether that's
Mm.
by society, their parents, their peers, their teachers, their guidance counselors, whoever that may be. Um, and they don't know why they're there and they don't care about being there. And when education costs what it does in the United States, we really need to have students who are invested in being there. A lot of money is being spent on education that is not being fully realized and capitalized on because students feel lost and confused. And I think
So
that's
do
evident in the classroom as well.
so so do you think there should be a specific like class or a specific um technique that is implemented
I
where
think, yeah. I think we need to stop rushing to do things for students. I think
mm,
when we need students to complete a FAFSA, we need to let them struggle through completing the FAFSA. We need to be available for questions. We shouldn't be doing it for them. The number of students who do not know they need to refile their FAFSA because their guidance counselor in high school filed it for them their first semester is staggering. And those are small ways in which we think we're helping, right? It's easy to rush in and say, oh, we want to make sure that the student gets their funding and we want to make sure that they don't have to worry about money when they go to college. But what we're doing is we're removing pieces that they would normally traditionally be responsible to complete that
mm,
helps them gain agency, right? If they don't know what's going on around them and what's been done for them, then they will not have any kind of sense of ownership of that. And in the absence of ownership, you're not going to see students really
take
uh,
accountability.
take accountability, make decisions for themselves. Students frequently want us to choose their major for them. Those are things that they don't realize how much power they're handing back to us.
So also to improve their sense of agency and the importance of having agency.
And
Now,
completing their yes, and I think the way that we start instilling that is we hold them accountable, and we have
oh,
them complete the tasks that they need to complete on their own. Right? We don't
so I
move
guess
them
that
to the next grade without them
without them
demonstrating that they've
actually,
mastered the material of this grade. Correct.
so they're actually they have to hit some bench. So in essence, it sounds like we need to let them fail or hit them their heads, and then have the questions to be able to say, hey, why did this happen? And for us to step in and say, hey, I believe that this happened as a result of you doing A, B, and C, the lack thereof.
I agree because I don't think my school ever let us hit our heads. I think my school handheld us the entire way. And even into college, it was still a lot of hand holding to the point where we
Mhm.
kind of, once we got on our own, we kind of had to be like, oh, nobody's here to help me. I kind of have to do this on my own. And I think it
Mhm.
did us a disservice because then we had to fill out our FAFSA by ourselves. We had to do our TAP and stuff. And I still had to
Mhm.
like contact my college counselor, like, hey, you helped me last time. Can you help me this time? And it's like, you're in college now. You should know what you put on your FAFSA.
Listen, and that is what is so fascinating, right? That sentence, you're in college now, you should know, is often spoken by the same people
That
who made it
work for
impossible
them.
for you to learn,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Yes.
what's so difficult about this conversation is that, it sounds so harsh when I say, we need to have them do it themselves and we need to, and I don't say it from the perspective of, like as a penalty, right?
Yes.
I'm not looking at it as you need to be penalized for what the trends that we're seeing now. I'm saying that in order for students to feel like they know what they're doing and they have authority over their own lives and their own studies, we need to trust them, and we need to trust educators that they're doing the job they were
A
hired to
good.
do.
I
you know
agree. I agree. I wanted to ask just two more follow-ups because I know you both have time and you have things
Mhm.
to do. I wanted to ask, what do you believe is some proactive early warning signs or intervention strategies that we can implement to actually students that may be like experiencing academic deficiencies, or that prevent them from, because many students actually exit academia because they feel they can't hack do
Mhm.
you believe that there are specific like proactive warning signs or intervention strategies that we can implement to help students? One of them definitely you just outlined with the creating a sense of agency and being able to speak up for themselves. Do you think
Mhm.
of anything else that you think we can bring to the forefront that may help people even as they go into college or just to maintain themselves in college while they're there? Either. Anything you could think of.
I think with the situation we have right now, we have to be extremely reactive rather than proactive.
Okay.
Um, but I do think that one key strategy is for us to create networks of support. It's it's
Okay.
not enough to have early alert systems that will notify, this, that, and the other department that a student is
It's
doing
failing.
poorly, right?
Yeah.
You need to have conversations between those departments. And that is a very, very difficult task to tackle. But if I am an advisor and I hear from the professor that the student
Mm-hmm.
isn't doing well, right? That doesn't help the student unless we loop in the student.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do that frequently enough. We do not listen to each other within
Okay.
the institution.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always listen to the student. And we need to work on that network of support to see how we can do targeted interventions that are unique to that student's needs. Because we also tend to treat all issues of academic challenges with kind of the same treatment.
Same
When
brush.
oftentimes, yeah, when oftentimes there are very, very varied reasons as to why students may not be performing at the level that we would like them to. So I think that the biggest strategy is communication and a support network rather than individuals who are supporting the student in different and possibly conflicting ways.
So maybe a coordinated effort between the
Correct.
different entities. Okay, I like
Yes,
that. I like that a
yes.
lot. Kayla?
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I think I just to build on what you said, I think a lot of the times as a student, you would kind of be like, oh, it'll get better. I just have to get through this day. And then it keeps
Mm,
that I just have to get through this. And then suddenly it's the end of the semester and you're still struggling, you haven't spoken up. And this professor is saying you're not doing well, this other professor, but nobody's talking to each other. So
mhm,
Yeah.
it can become very stressful when, okay, you have three different classes that you're struggling with, and all three of them don't understand that you're struggling with these different classes. I think it's just a matter of
Mm.
being communicative, one-on-ones, definitely, I feel like. Meeting as a group, sometimes just meeting with your advisor can be very helpful, but I think
mhm,
your advisor alone can't help you. Sometimes you need to rope in those professors and stuff like that.
mhm, mhm,
Okay, so even creating a collaborative network of professors, not just one-on-one professors, but maybe a group of professors. So
Yeah,
maybe creating a system where if you're struggling in three classes, we create a cohort of those three professors to maybe talk about the challenges that you're experiencing in not just one, but three classes. And then they can maybe come up with a actionable item for you as a student to then be able to hit, so that way it's not like you're just doing this for my class, but it has no relevance in the other class. We create a coordinated effort of success.
exactly.
mhm.
It's very easy to get overwhelmed when you realize you're like slipping further and further, and it's kind of hard to get back once you're past the point.
Of
Mhm.
no return.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that like some innovate like intervention strategies would be like one of my students I experienced this past semester. um he was so proficient in the subject matter, proficient in his questions that he was asking, but he had no support at home.
Mhm.
And he dropped my class, and I normally don't get an explanation email from a student that dropped my class.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
he said, I didn't drop the class because you're a hard professor. I didn't drop the class because I couldn't understand the material. I didn't even drop the class because it didn't fit into my schedule. Is that I have no support network at home. And
Mhm.
because I need um someone, I'm the primary caregiver for my grandma, and no one else is home. I have to actually be there with her because she's very, very ill. And as
Mhm.
a result of that, I can't come to class to hear your lectures. I can't I can't afford the book any longer. And he was
Mhm.
like, I really would if I just had just a little bit of help, just a little bit of help. And so I even asked my chair, I said, do we have book scholarships? And they looked at me as if I was crazy. Book scholarships? What do you mean
Mhm.
book scholarships? And I'm like, well, I heard that they implemented like a little bit of a daycare for some students that like may need that at other colleges. Do we have, if students just need just a helping hand of $50 or $100, they might be able to apply for this book scholarship? And he was like, no, why would we do that? And I'm like, why would we do that? Because it's
Mhm.
such a need. And I feel like an innovative strategy that we can use, or intervention or early warning signs, if you see a student and they're flagged for a technological issue, i.e., they don't have a computer, or
Mhm.
they're flagged because they don't have the book. One of the things that then that system would do is say, hey, you don't have a computer, we have loaner computers.
Mhm.
I have IT in on this call, so now IT is ready to give you the loaner computer. You can't afford the book. I see your professor is saying that you haven't read the material, you haven't purchased the book. Do you have the funds to purchase that book? If you don't, we have a scholarship. Fill out this
Mhm.
paper here. And if following on what Julie said, the sense of agency, hey, what else do you need help with? Are you
Mhm.
not getting food? Are you having a hard time getting to class on time? Do you need access to a Metro card? Like things like that. Showing many students have no knowledge of the resources that the schools provide. So
Correct.
providing them that window of opportunity, that these are the things that are available to you, and if you don't know how to access them, this is how you go about accessing it. But I think
Mhm.
they have to have the agency, as you outlined, Julie, and said, say first and foremost, hey, I need help. That's the
Correct.
first window. And then we can like say, okay, look at my wares. This is all the things that I have. And I think
Right.
and I think they might get overwhelmed, as Kayla said, with all of the commentary. But I believe that it will be great for them if they have that. Now,
Right.
my last question for you lovely ladies would be, do you think that there are any potential building blocks or pitfalls that students might experience in academia that we can kind of, well, I think we kind of hit on a lot of this, but like, do you feel that there are any potential pitfalls or blocks that may prevent them from actually achieving college readiness?
Yeah, I think the biggest hindrances to this are um unclear systems. Like how does college
Okay.
work, right?
Okay.
And if a student is coming into an environment that is unfamiliar to begin with, and then that environment is confusing as well, we're making the issue worse, right? Because we're taking their imposter syndrome and basically validating it, right? We're saying
Gaslight.
we can't help you navigate this place because this place is difficult to navigate and we don't have time to explain it to you. So that's one big piece. And another piece is just not showing the compassion and the understanding to students who are not college ready. And we know most of our students are not college ready.
Mm.
For context, I work in a community college that serves the urban poor for the most part. That's the largest piece of our population. So there are plenty of opportunities for a student to feel like they don't belong in the institution. And
Mm.
the worst thing that we can do is to reinforce that feeling. Um, so we need to be prepared for students to not be college ready, and we need to assist as best we can in developing their self advocacy and making them feel comfortable about asking questions. As you said, many students do not know the resources that are available. And those resources are
Yes.
available because we know our populations need them, right?
Yeah.
Um, And so it's on the institutions to fulfill that role for the student. The role of, hey, you need to be able to trust us with your questions, and we need to give you empathetic and compassionate support, rather than, dismissive responses, or reinforce that feeling that they should know what they
So
should be asking for.
we got to definitely a sense of belonging.
Yes. Sense of belonging is key.
Especially if they're coming from a background that's like socioeconomically challenged.
Mhm.
A lot of the time,
Correct.
institutions and colleges as a whole will assume everybody's here. They just all come from the same place, and that's not the case.
Mhm.
A lot of the times, for many people, it's their first time being around people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, and there can be a
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, like, do I even belong here? And the
Yes.
support from the school can definitely be helpful, but it can be hard when, especially if you're in a really big school, it can be very easy to fall through the cracks and just kind of be,
Mhm.
I don't belong here, so I'm not even going to bother to try.
Correct. Correct.
And lose your voice in
Yeah.
essence. So my last question, I know I keep my last question, but definitely, why is the individual voice so important? Whether it's the student voice, whether it's the advisor voice, whether it's the professor's voice to the discussion of college readiness. Why? Because my biggest thing that I have seen in my research is that college readiness is based more so on numerical, qualitative, quantitative, better yet, not so much quantitative,
Mhm.
quantitative metrics as opposed to the people themselves. I believe in my research that I think the voice is necessary. We have actual commentary to actually break down this notion of college readiness.
Mhm.
Ask you both why that student voice is important, the advisor voice, the professor voice, to the larger question of readiness.
Well, I think the student voice is important just because nobody knows the student better than themselves. Nobody's going to advocate for the student better than themselves. And I think a lot of the times you can look one way on a transcript. People will say, "Oh, you have bad grades," but they never ask why or what's going on to have them have those grades. So I think the student voice is very important because there's a lot of times there's stuff that you don't understand that you just wouldn't get on a piece of paper. And I think just being able to talk to the advisor, talk to the professor, and intersect all these voices is how you enable college readiness and therefore success.
Yeah. I mean, Kayla hit the nail on the head.
I would like to thank first and foremost my two participants, Julie and Kayla, for providing so much valuable commentary on the subject matter of college readiness. Because as we all understand from that commentary, college readiness is multifaceted. And students will suddenly find themselves in a new, strange, and possibly demanding and stressful environment than they previously knew before. So, because of these primary reasons, we now more than ever need to get a better handle on this notion of college readiness. When does it start? What benchmarks do we need? What type of collaborations can we create? Not just with the students themselves, but as Julie pointed out, it has to be a collaborative effort with students, peers, advisors, professors, and the students themselves, building a sense of agency, being proactive instead of reactive. Many times, not being afraid to try, to fail, to hit your head, to bump your head. And we need to redefine when college readiness starts. As you heard in this commentary, we had three different perspectives starting from the first grade, the fifth grade, and the 11th grade. And Also, Kayla added more nuance to the conversation by saying that we can't just have a one-sided approach to college readiness, just thinking only about academics, but we should prepare students for the other side of college, meaning the parties, the atmosphere, the different cohort groups that you might meet, the different social economic strata that you might encounter, and how that may impact a student's ability to be college ready. So all of these things are filled with ample opportunity for knowledge development and knowledge cultivation. So I hope you have enjoyed the conversation on college readiness, and I look forward to our next episode. Tune in next week.